can't introduce you to her because on September 25th, 2010, Vanessa was killed by the defendant. The defendant was a designated driver. The defendant was a designated driver who drove drunk. Because the defendant drove drunk, Vanessa Sullivan is dead. On September 24th, 2010, Vanessa turned 21 years old. She had a family who loved her dearly, friends who looked up to her, plans for her future. But that night, all of those things were taken from her when the defendant made the decision to get behind the wheel when she was too drunk to drive. And we believe the evidence will show that on September 24th, 2010, the defendant was reckless. She drank excessively, knowing that she would later be expected to drive. And you will hear from Taylor Hobson, Vanessa's best friend. She was with Vanessa and the defendant the night Vanessa was killed. She will tell you about how the defendant had drink after drink after drink after drink, and then insisted that she was okay to drive. Then she got behind the wheel. And after she got behind the wheel, she blatantly disregarded the speed limit and attempted to make a 20-minute trip in half the time. She intentionally ignored the pleadings of her passengers. Slow down. Ultimately, she crashed into a tree and killed Vanessa Sullivan. To put it simply, she just didn't care. She didn't care that the weather was bad that night when she was speeding. She didn't care about the safety of Vanessa and Taylor when she was drinking. And it was this apathy, this indifference to human life that allowed her to act with such extreme recklessness. Now, you also hear from an eyewitness who saw the crash as it happened. Now, he will tell you about how the rain was so heavy that night. He will tell you how he saw the defendant was going too fast on the curve on Canyon Road, and how he saw the defendant crash into a tree and a utility pole. Now, today the state has the burden to prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant murdered Vanessa Sullivan while driving under the influence of alcohol. And we believe the evidence will show that that is exactly what happened. A forensic scientist who gave a breathalyzer test to the defendant after she killed Vanessa will tell you exactly how much alcohol was in the defendant's system after the crash. And we believe a second forensic scientist will agree that it was inarguable that the defendant was too drunk to drive that night. Now, folks, after you hear the evidence today, we believe that there will be only one choice to make. The defendant was a designated driver. The defendant was a designated driver who drove drunk. Because the defendant drove drunk, Vanessa Sullivan is dead. Because Vanessa Sullivan is dead, you must find the defendant guilty of murder and driving under the influence